So I'm going to kind of go back and forth between respiratory and digestion. Okay, so just bear with me as I point out everything. What would this be?
External nares.
External nares, fantastic. Not the nasal cavity because that's further in, right? Surrounded by the cranium, the bones of the cranium. So these would be the external nares involved in which system? Respiratory, not digestion. All right, fantastic. What cavity would this be?
The oral.
Oral cavity. This is tongue, teeth. You should know what those structures do for digestion, okay? All right, so this is the trachea, and I know it's the trachea because it's on the anterior side. It's what I see first. And you can also see the hyaline cartilage rings, okay? So this is the trachea, and if y'all put gloves on, like after I'm done and y'all want to look at this yourself, if you put gloves on and you touch the trachea versus touching this top part, this top portion is much thicker and sturdier. That's because this upper portion is the larynx. That's our voice box. Okay, and then this is the trachea once we see the C-shaped hyaline cartilage rings. Also, when you have gloves on, what I want y'all to do is put your finger in the posterior side of the trachea, and what you can see is, here I'll put the probe in the middle. Look, I wasn't lying about it being C-shaped. See how it's open? There's just a membrane that connects the posterior side. Okay, but it's a C-shaped. It's open on the back. And it's open on the posterior side because, look, this is the what? Esophagus. This is our esophagus, okay? It lies on the posterior side, and the esophagus has to expand when the bolus is going down, so the trachea is C-shaped. The hyaline cartilage rings are C-shaped. Up on the larynx, this, I'll work backwards, okay? This cartilage right here, okay, if you feel it, this is one of those things where you have to put gloves on and feel it, but I'm putting the probe in between the two cartilages. This one, right before the trachea, is the cricoid. This one, which is larger and more superior, is the thyroid. If you open up the posterior side, one of the first structures that you see is the, what is this? The epiglottis. It looks like a little duckbill, and it's made up of elastic cartilage so that it can come down, flap over, and close off the glottis, which is the hole, okay? The glottis is the hole. Does everyone see inside? There's this, it looks like, I'm putting the probe in between, it looks like a little Pac-Man mouth right here. Looks like a little Pac-Man mouth. Those are the true vocal cords. And on the outside, kind of superior, kind of branches up and a little superior to it, these are the false vocal cords, okay?
Wait, I don't see that.
True vocal cords, false vocal cords.
Oh, okay.
True, false, okay? All right. The trachea is going to run down and eventually branch off into the primary bronchi, which will enter into the lungs. They are going to take out the heart, so maybe we can see the primary bronchi, but I'm not going to remove the heart, so we can't see it. On the cat, you don't need to be able to identify the individual lungs, lobes of the lungs. On the models, you do though, okay? For the cat, you just need to know this would be the left lung, all of these. That would be the left lung, this would be the right lung, okay? The last organ for respiratory that you need to know is this. It looks kind of like a red onion. That's the diaphragm. The diaphragm is a muscle involved in, so right now it's relaxed because it's dome-shaped. When it contracts, it actually flattens out. And this is vital in our breathing mechanism, which we'll talk about next week, okay? So this is our diaphragm. All right, so now we're gonna switch to mainly digestion. Here's our esophagus. Our esophagus is going to run down. Eventually, it's going to exit the thoracic cavity through the diaphragm and enter into the, what? Where does the esophagus lead to? Stomach. The stomach. This huge pouch-like organ is the stomach. Okay? This greater part of the stomach is the greater curvature. And what is attached to it? The greater omentum, called the greater omentum because it's attached to the greater curvature. Greater omentum, huge blanket of fat that kind of covers all of the abdominopelvic organs. Reason for that cushion, the abdominopelvic cavity does not have ribs it doesn't have bone encapsulating it for protection. So the fat, this blanket of fat embedded in loose areolar connective tissue, helps with the cushion and protection of the organs. Okay, as well as what fat does: insulation, body temperature regulation, and energy storage. This small little chunk of fatty tissue that's sandwiched right here in the lesser curvature is the lesser omentum. Greater omentum, it blankets over the abdominal pelvic organs. Lesser omentum right here in the lesser curvature of the stomach. This huge organ, kind of right above, takes up primarily the right quadrant, the upper right quadrant. This is the what? Liver. The liver. Multiple lobes to the liver. And when you touch it, it's very hard. You don't need to know the specific lobes of the liver, but if you kind of move away the lobes, you'll see this balloon-shaped organ. This is the gallbladder. And it doesn't have a really distinct coloration. Sometimes you'll see gallbladders that are super bright green for whatever reason, from the bile. But if you touch it, you can tell there's a difference between texture of this balloon. Because the gallbladder, if you look at the gallbladder on a histology slide, it's a very thin, hollow organ. Like it's not very, there's not a whole lot of structure to it. So this would be the gallbladder. Coming directly off of the stomach, this first part of the large intestine would be called the what? The duodenum. Am I going to ask duodenum, jejunum, ileum? Yes, I am. How are you going to be able to tell? If I ask small intestine that's really close to the stomach, it's the duodenum. Here, does everyone see in the small intestines there's this kind of spider web-like tissue that holds them all together, and arteries? And the yellow vessels are actually veins. This cat was injected to show the hepatic portal system, and the hepatic portal system is yellow. So these would all be the veins coming and would connect with the what? Superior mesenteric vein, which would go to the what? Hepatic portal vein, which goes to the what? The liver, okay? All right, so this is all mesentery, loose areolar connective tissue. It allows for the blood vessels to be embedded in something, right, to give it more structure, as well as hold the entire length of the intestines together, because it's such a long organ. Embedded in that mesentery, right below the duodenum, does everyone see this grainy mass of cells? Okay, this grainy mass is actually the pancreas. So the pancreas doesn't look like an organ which, when we think of the stomach or the liver or the small intestine, it has like this definite structure to it. But the pancreas is very grainy. It's just like a mass of cells. Okay, embedded in the mesentery right below the duodenum. Why would the pancreas be located right below the duodenum and really close to the liver and gallbladder? Huh? The duct system, right? The pancreas has to have a pancreatic duct that leads to the duodenum. The liver and the gallbladder have the common bile duct which leads to the duodenum. So it makes sense that all the pancreas, the liver, and the gallbladder all really close to the duodenum, okay? If we go all the way down, I move all these small intestines away, and I kind of jump forward to the, can everyone see the difference in diameter between this part of the intestine and this part? This is the large intestine. In cats only have a descending large intestine or colon. In humans, there's an ascending, transverse, descending, sigmoidal to the rectum, which you have to identify all of those on human models, but cats, just descending large intestine or colon. Does everyone see, if you work your way back from the large intestine back towards the small intestines, that there's this C-shaped region? It looks like a C. That's the cecum. So here's the cecum. This part would be the ileum. And regulating the passage of chyme from the ileum into the cecum, embedded in here would be the ileocecal valve. Do you have to identify the ileocecal valve? No, but I could put a pin right here and ask, what is here that regulates the passage of chyme? And you would have to be able to recognize that this is the ileum, this is the cecum, ileocecal valve would be embedded within it, okay? So this would be the ileum because it's really close to the cecum. And if I ask really like kind of anywhere in the middle, not by the large intestine, not by the stomach, you would say what? Jejunum. Fantastic. So those are, this organ right here, located like kind of longitudinally on the left-hand side, this is the spleen. Okay? The spleen, the size of the spleen is going to be indicative of the health of the organism. So if this cat had a really bad parasitic infection, the spleen would be absolutely huge. That's why if anyone has had mono before, or any sort of infection where they say like you can't play PE, like if you were a kid, like you can't play PE or any sort of sports, because if you were to get hit where your spleen is, the spleen could rupture because it's so enlarged. That's why, because it's a part of the lymphatic system and it plays a role in immunity.
Is that normal size?
This would be like normal size. I've opened up cats where it's like almost the entire abdominal pelvic cavity is spleen because they were really bad off. They had a really bad infection. What else? Spleen. Oh, I think I got everything. That's all that you have to identify on the cats.